We don't need a Congress. We got this regulatory system that the Democrat witness thinks we need. So forget like putting your name on a ballot, going actually out and talking to the people and get elected to office and being in the United States Congress. We don't need it, according to Mr. Michaels. That's what this committee is supposed to uphold. More than any other committee in the Congress, we're supposed to be focused on that. And yet we have witnesses come in here and basically say, do away with Congress, let the regulatory state run the country. That is frightening.
They're really criticizing science because I represent science.
Professor Mascott, when was Dr. Fauci elected to office?
At no time.
Has he ever been elected to anything?
I have not. He's not, certainly not in the current role.
Is he a member of Congress?
No.
Now, Dr. Fauci's a smart guy. In fact, if you don't believe me, just ask him. He said Sunday on a TV show that, quote, I represent science.
So it's easy to criticize, but they're really criticizing science because I represent science.
So I'm not saying he's not a smart individual, but who does Dr. Fauci answer to?
Well, I mean, well, at this point, I mean, presumably indirectly to the president. But I take your point.
Well, I don't even think, Professor, with all due respect, I don't even think he answered to the president because President Biden says we follow the science, and Dr. Fauci has basically said, I am science. I'm almost like God speaking. So I don't even think he answers to the president. So this is what scares me, is the fact that it's people who've never put their name on a ballot, never went out and talked to we the people who are making the decisions. And frankly, the Democrats' witness likes it that way. Let me just read from Mr. Michaels, Professor Michaels' testimony this morning. Just one sentence. We need an agile regulatory system to address the climate crisis, COVID-19 variants, environmental injustice, massive income, wealth inequality, affordable housing shortage, antibiotic resistance organism, the opioid overdose epidemic, and threats to the financial stability posed by cryptocurrency. We don't need a Congress. We don't need a Congress. We got this regulatory system that the Democrat witness thinks we need. So forget like putting your name on a ballot, going actually out and talking to the people and get elected to office and being in the United States Congress. We don't need it, according to Mr. Michaels. So isn't that your concern?
Yeah, I think you're putting your finger on a very poignant example in current practice where we have a significant problem facing the country, obviously the pandemic. And there's a very broad statute, the quarantine statute from the 1940s, that had not been carried out anywhere close to the way it has been applied recently in the past.
But Mr. Michaels doesn't want to limit it to that. Dr. Fauci may want to. Who knows what he wants to? He probably just wants to be dictator. But Mr. Michaels doesn't want to limit it to that. He talks about affordable housing. He's talking about cryptocurrency. He's talking about environmental injustice. I mean, he's talking about all kinds of things that he thinks the regulatory state needs to be able to agilely, or in some kind of fashion, be able to deal with. So yes. It's not just quarantine issues.
Well, of course, and I think the reason what you're pointing to, right, is the breadth of the law and how it's being interpreted. And if we defer to the executive branch's interpretation, that housing and cryptocurrency and whatever else falls within.
But that's sort of how it works, isn't it? I mean, there's always some exceptions, and there's some give and take in the comment period of these. But the agency proposes a rule, then they enforce the rule, and then if there's a dispute, they have an Article 1 judge, executive branch judge, adjudicate. And they want more of that. They want them to do that for everything. So why do we need a Congress?
Right. The concentration of power, I think, in single entities is one of the greatest problems facing our system of government.
No kidding. No kidding. The people who make decisions and impact small business owners, Americans, I mean, just every single day, the regulatory state, the bureaucratic state runs this country, and it is a huge problem. It's the biggest threat to liberty I think we see. And I haven't seen the bill that the chairman is introducing, but my gut tells me it probably moves in the direction that their witnesses want it to go, which is more power to the bureaucratic state. Is that your interpretation of their bill? I don't know if you've seen it either, because I haven't.
I have not seen the bill. I will say I think the most constitutional approach would be for power to be dispersed among different decision makers, state, local communities, families, then at the federal level, policymaking in Congress. And you all have a lot of power here to be able to put those systems in place and make policy decisions.
We're supposed to have a lot of power, something we need to claim back or take back. This idea that bureaucrats are going to run the country is, as I said before, frightening. You said this earlier. I just want to read this. I think this is you put this well, and you just basically said the same thing. The distribution of power over separate branches of government helps to ensure that each branch can more effectively perform its function of serving as a check on the other branches in order to better secure, this is the important part, the private interest of every individual. The security for civil rights consists in the multiplicity of interests. That is the Constitution. That's what this committee is supposed to uphold. More than any other committee in the Congress, we're supposed to be focused on that. And yet we have witnesses come in here and basically say, do away with Congress, let the regulatory state run the country. That is frightening. And the fact that the Attorney General hasn't been called back by our chairman to answer our questions when 41 days ago he came in here and misled us, and more importantly, misled the American people, I just can't figure out. I want the committee to understand this. In a 24-day time period, here's what happened. On September 29th, the National School Boards Association writes a letter to the President of the United States asking the president to use the Patriot Act to go after moms and dads. One of the individuals who signed that letter, Ms. Garcia, 2 days later, on October 1st, gets a plum position on a board at the Department of Education. A snitch line on moms and dads. All that happens in 5 days. Now, I've been around government a while, and I've never seen government move that fast in my life. And of course, the next day, October 22nd, the National School Board Association, because of the political fallout, they thought it was going to be a political winner. It turned out to be a political loser for them. The National School Board Association withdraws the letter, and they say in that letter, we regret and apologize for the letter we sent on September 29th. All that happens in 24 days. Again, I have never seen government move that fast in my life. Now, those 24 days are just part of the story, though, because the most important part is what happened before September 29th. The most important part is the coordination between the White House and the School Board Association before the letter was ever sent. Here's what we know from FOIA requests, from communications made by Mr. Slavin and Ms. Garcia. Here's what Mr. Slavin said. The White House requested additional information from the National School Boards Association before the letter was sent. And Ms. Garcia said this, quote, the National School Boards Association communicated for several weeks with the White House before the letter was sent. It didn't originate with the School Board Association. It started with the Biden administration and with the Garland Justice Department. They were looking for an excuse, looking for a pretext. And the fact that it's been 41 days since the Attorney General sat at that desk and lied to this committee, and we haven't called him back, I just can't believe it. So, Mr. Chairman, I hope the chairman of the full committee will ask Mr. Garland to come back and answer our questions. Because we have seen this pattern before, frankly. And I know the Democrats all day like to make fun of this, but we've seen this pattern before. So again, I would just say it's been 41 days, Mr. Chairman. 41 days since the Attorney General misled us, the Judiciary Committee misled the American people. I hope our next hearing, whenever that is, Mr. Garland is in here answering a lot of questions we have. I'm sure the Democrats have some questions too, but the fact that he hasn't been brought back is wrong, and everyone knows it.